Welcome to Kunzy Podcast English, the place where we bring you interesting stories and topics to help you improve your English every day. Get ready to explore unique and inspiring content with us. In today's podcast episode, we will dive into Apple's bold move, shifting iPhone production to India and the U.S. Stay tuned to discover the major changes in Apple's production strategy and their global impact. Part 1. When Apple had to make a critical decision in the world of technology, where everything operates with millisecond precision, even a small disruption in the supply chain can trigger a domino effect. But what Apple faced wasn't just a minor glitch. It was a geopolitical earthquake, and it started in Washington. U.S.-China trade tensions. A political bomb dropped on the global supply chain in 2018, under President Donald Trump's administration. One of the largest trade wars of the century began. The target, China, Apple's most important manufacturing partner. With wave after wave of tariffs, the U.S. imposed heavy taxes on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of goods imported from China, including critical electronics and high-tech components. Apple, at that moment, was like a giant standing on thin ice. Over 90% of all iPhones sold globally, including every unit sold in the U.S., were assembled in Chinese factories. Every step from production to packaging to shipping depended on one single country. And now, that country had become the center of a global economic clash. What seemed like abstract numbers, tariffs up to 145%, weren't just political moves. For Apple, it was a direct threat. Keeping production in China would mean either absorbing billions of dollars in losses annually or passing the costs to consumers, potentially pricing iPhones out of reach for many. This wasn't just about profit margins. This was a survival issue. The pandemic, an invisible flood that swept through the supply chain. While Apple was still grappling with how to balance profit and diplomacy, another crisis struck, the COVID-19 pandemic. Originating in Wuhan, one of China's major industrial hubs, the virus spread quickly, and the Chinese government responded with a strict zero-COVID policy. Entire cities were locked down, factories shut, and the entire global logistics chain was disrupted. For Apple, this was the second blow, this time from within. A single infection could shut down the massive Foxconn plant in Zhengzhou. Millions of iPhones missed production deadlines. Containers sat idle at ports. Consumers waited weeks, even months, for products. The world finally saw how fragile centralized production could be. A single point of failure, China, could freeze Apple's entire global operations. And for a company that prides itself on seamless customer experience, product delays and supply issues were simply unacceptable. Apple could no longer stay silent. For nearly 2 decades, Apple had relied on China as the heart of its manufacturing ecosystem. But now, that heart was under strain, not just politically, not just due to the pandemic, but because of what lay ahead. A future where putting all their manufacturing eggs in one basket was no longer an option. Apple didn't make a dramatic public announcement. There were no flashy press conferences. But internally, the decision had been made. They had to pivot. They had to act. This was no longer a matter of if. It was now a matter of must. A step back to prepare for a giant leap forward. In hindsight, it all makes sense. Without the trade war, Apple might not have seen the risk. Without the pandemic, they might still believe in the reliability of the old system. But reality knocked, and it didn't knock gently. Apple knew it needed a new strategy, a new path. And on this global chessboard, where superpowers compete for dominance, Apple had to take the initiative. It had to break free from a passive, dependent, and vulnerable position. The real reason behind it, not because Apple was afraid, but because it could see the bigger picture. Some might say Apple is leaving China due to pressure. That's not accurate. Apple isn't leaving. It's evolving. The company recognizes that in today's world, supply chain diversification isn't optional. It's essential for survival. Every iPhone is a masterpiece crafted through hundreds of stages, thousands of parts, and millions of decisions. To preserve that level of quality, Apple needs a system resilient to global turbulence, whether it's a pandemic, a trade war, or a future crisis we can't yet see. And that's why Apple had to step out of its comfort zone, break away from its old model, and begin a new journey, one that we'll continue exploring in the next part. Part 2, The Silent Shift. How Apple is redrawing its global manufacturing map. What happens when a trillion-dollar tech empire stakes its future on the infrastructure of a single country? For nearly 2 decades, Apple did exactly that, and the results were nothing short of extraordinary. But the world doesn't stand still. And Apple, if it wanted not just to survive but to lead, had to evolve fast. It was time to distribute its power, diversify its production, and above all, do it wisely, quietly, and with calculated precision. From strategy to execution, a quiet revolution to outsiders, it may have seemed like just another business pivot. But for those watching closely, it was clear, Apple wasn't executing a backup plan. It was beginning a transformation, a fundamental reshaping of its production philosophy. For years, China had been the perfect partner, an unmatched ecosystem of suppliers, skilled labor, advanced logistics, and scalability. But that very strength became a vulnerability in an age where geopolitics could change overnight. Apple needed to look beyond. That's where a new name entered the spotlight: India. India, the new frontier for iPhone manufacturing. India didn't randomly appear on Apple's radar. It checked all the right boxes. And most importantly, it provided exactly what Apple was missing in a post-pandemic, post-tariff world. First, cost. Labor and operations in India are significantly cheaper than in China. That, paired with a massive, young, and trainable workforce, made the country extremely attractive for long-term investment. Second, policy. The Indian government, under Prime Minister Narendra Modi, has rolled out a series of incentives aimed at luring global tech giants. Programs like Make in India and favorable tax reforms transformed the country from a low-cost hub to a serious candidate for becoming Apple's next global manufacturing powerhouse. And third, often overlooked, is that India is also a massive consumer market. By setting up production inside the country, Apple doesn't just save on logistics and tariffs. It also builds goodwill, positioning itself as a brand that invests in the local economy. This wasn't just about exporting iPhones from India, it was about planting a long-term flag in one of the world's most dynamic markets. Starting small, thinking big, Apple didn't jump headfirst. It tested the waters. In 2020, the first made-in-India iPhones rolled off the assembly lines. The volumes were modest, the models selected carefully, and the operations tightly monitored. But the signal was loud and clear: a new era was beginning. As performance metrics came in, on-time delivery, quality control, cost efficiency, Apple started to ramp up. Its major suppliers, like Foxconn and Wistron, expanded their footprint in the southern states of Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, creating tens of thousands of new jobs. Each new iPhone assembled in India told the same story: Apple was on the move. Not just assembling devices, but building an entire ecosystem. What's remarkable isn't just that Apple is assembling more iPhones in India, it's that the company is recreating a full-scale supply chain there, piece by piece. Apple isn't merely shifting locations. It's laying the foundation for a new technological ecosystem, one that doesn't just depend on proximity to China's supply network, but grows its own roots, locally, independently. Every chip supplier, every logistics partner, every policy discussion, Apple is playing the long game. Because to move away from China, they can't just relocate, they have to rebuild from the ground up. What the future holds by 2026, it's entirely possible that nearly all iPhones sold in the US and India will be manufactured within those countries. That milestone will be more than a logistical win, it will mark the beginning of a new Apple. One that is more agile, more resilient, and no longer tied down to a single production geography. Not because it fears China, but because it's maturing beyond dependency. Apple isn't just shifting operations, it's rewriting the rules of global manufacturing. And this silent transformation, this strategic dance between risk and reward, is only getting started. Part 3, A Silent Revolution. Apple's ambitious move to relocate iPhone manufacturing for the US market to India. There's a truth that few are willing to face: the world of technology, no matter how glamorous and cutting-edge, remains a fragile universe, where political changes, economic shifts, or even a tiny virus can shake the entire supply chain worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Apple knows this better than anyone, and that's exactly why they are quietly, but decisively, placing their bet on the future of the iPhone, arguably their most iconic product, on a brand new destination, India. This is no longer just a rumor or a test strategy. This is a complete relocation, and the United States, the largest and most important market for Apple, will be the stage to witness this revolution unfold. When India becomes the new factory for the US, a well-calculated plan is now being brought to life. By the end of 2026, nearly 100% of iPhones sold in the US will be assembled in India, a number that might surprise many, but for those closely watching Apple's every move, this is not surprising at all. India isn't just producing iPhones. It is gradually becoming the new pillar where Apple places its trust to maintain stability in its supply chain for one of the most competitive and demanding markets in the world, the United States. 60 million iPhones annually, that's the target Apple is aiming for just for the US market, and all of these phones will be made in state-of-the-art factories in southern Indian states like Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. What's happening here isn't just setting up a new manufacturing point. Apple is creating a new ecosystem, a massive machine that operates synchronously, efficiently, and powerfully to serve the world's highest-end market. The silent giants behind the scenes behind this transformation are names that might sound familiar but are now playing entirely new roles: Foxconn, Tata Electronics, Pegatron. These aren't just production partners, they are the builders of a new foundation for Apple in Asia. Foxconn, a name nearly synonymous with Apple in China, has now repositioned itself as a vanguard of Apple's strategy in India. They are investing billions of dollars into infrastructure, expanding their factories, and training local workers to meet the stringent standards Apple has set. Pegatron, once a shadow of Foxconn, is also joining the race, bringing in their expertise and innovative spirit, ready to adapt to Apple's ever-growing demands. But the most surprising player here is Tata Electronics, the Indian conglomerate large enough and capable enough to compete with Taiwanese partners in such a demanding field as high-tech manufacturing. Apple isn't just partnering with Tata for proximity's sake. They are betting on India's local capacity, on the country's ability to build a self-sufficient tech ecosystem. Tata isn't simply a contract manufacturer. They are being positioned as a long-term strategic partner, helping Apple not just produce, but design, test, and refine products directly in India. More than just a transfer, this is a statement. The decision to transfer 100% of the US-bound iPhone production to India isn't merely an economic or political move. It reflects a new development philosophy at Apple: flexible, sustainable, and less reliant. Flexibility to adapt to any changes, from pandemics to geopolitical tensions. Sustainability in managing costs, logistics, and product quality. And independence in a world where supply chain security has become a matter of national strategy, not just business strategy. Apple understands that if it wants to continue leading, it must change before it's forced to. And by moving its iPhone production for the US market to India, Apple isn't just protecting its profits, it's protecting its freedom and technological sovereignty. A historical moment in Apple's journey. Apple's history has seen many pivotal moments, from Steve Jobs' return to the company, to the release of the first iPhone in 2007, or even the recent shift to M1 chips. But perhaps few would have expected that one of the most strategic turning points would come in the form of shifting production from China to India. No fanfare, no bold declarations, but deeply strategic and far-reaching. A quiet change that's powerful enough to reshape an entire industry. And by 2026, when you purchase an iPhone in New York or San Francisco with the words "Assembled in India" on the box, remember that behind those small words lies one of the biggest decisions Apple has ever made. Part 4. The challenges of relocating production as Apple sets its sights on India as the new manufacturing powerhouse for iPhones destined for the U.S. The journey is far from straightforward. This is not simply a matter of shifting production lines. It's a bold move that comes with a host of hurdles. While the vision is grand, the reality of executing it involves overcoming multiple challenges that could hinder progress if not addressed with precision and care. Technical infrastructure and skill set gaps. India, despite its growing reputation in global manufacturing, is still catching up to the level of infrastructure and expertise seen in China. Over the years, China has built an intricate web of manufacturing capabilities, with highly efficient factories, a skilled labor force, and cutting-edge technology that powers its position as the world's manufacturing leader. Replicating this success in India is no small feat. The gap in technical infrastructure is one of the most pressing challenges. While India boasts a large network of factories, the scale, automation, and technological sophistication of those facilities lag behind their Chinese counterparts. Apple's stringent production standards demand not only high-quality manufacturing processes but also advanced machinery, automation, and logistics that ensure consistency across millions of units. In India, these systems are still in development. Moreover, the skill set of the workforce remains a hurdle. Apple's assembly lines require a highly specialized workforce, particularly in areas like quality control, precision assembly, and high-tech assembly processes. While India has a strong engineering talent pool, the specific skills required for such specialized work are still being cultivated. To meet Apple's standards, India's workforce needs extensive training. This means that Apple will have to invest heavily in workforce education, training millions of workers to meet the technological and operational demands of the job. It's not just about assembling phones, it's about mastering the art of precision at scale. Apple is no stranger to training and upskilling initiatives, but the sheer magnitude of this transition demands an accelerated approach. Without a highly skilled and well-trained labor force, ensuring the quality and reliability of iPhones on the level that Apple is known for becomes a daunting task. Political, legal, and supply chain risks. Another layer of complexity surrounds the political and legal landscape of India. As Apple shifts its production operations to India, it faces the risk of fluctuating governmental policies, taxation, and regulatory changes. The Indian government has made strides to create a more favorable environment for foreign investments, including offering incentives for manufacturers like Apple to establish operations there. However, the political climate can shift rapidly, and such incentives are not guaranteed long-term. Moreover, India's legal environment can be unpredictable. Laws regarding labor rights, environmental regulations, and trade tariffs could change with little notice, affecting Apple's operations. As a company that thrives on stability and predictability, the potential for sudden changes in policy represents a considerable risk. Beyond the political and legal risks lies the question of supply chain reliability. In the past, Apple has heavily relied on an intricate network of suppliers across China and other Asian countries to source the materials and components needed for iPhone production. While many of these suppliers are willing to shift to India, the country's supply chain infrastructure remains less developed. Sourcing high-quality components at scale may prove challenging, and logistical bottlenecks in transporting these parts across India could impact the speed and efficiency of production. These risks are not abstract, they are very real concerns that Apple will need to manage carefully. The company's ability to mitigate these challenges will determine whether India can truly replace China as the primary hub for iPhone production. Apple's track record suggests that they are well equipped to handle such challenges, but the risks remain significant. A balancing act between speed and quality. As Apple accelerates its production expansion in India, the need for speed becomes more critical. However, Apple cannot afford to compromise on quality. The iPhone brand is synonymous with premium quality, and every device produced must meet the highest standards of excellence. Balancing these competing demands, speeding up production while ensuring every unit meets Apple's strict quality control measures, is no small feat. The risks associated with rushing production or cutting corners in quality control could have long-lasting effects on Apple's reputation, especially in its home market, the United States. With the iPhone being one of the most recognized and sought-after devices globally, any slip in quality would be immediately noticeable. Apple's reputation for precision is as much a part of its brand identity as the devices themselves. Conclusion: navigating a complex landscape. The road ahead for Apple's production shift to India is anything but easy. While India presents significant opportunities, particularly in terms of lower labor costs and access to a vast consumer market, the challenges are just as substantial. The technical and skill-related gaps, coupled with the risks in the political, legal, and supply chain arenas, create a complex landscape that Apple must navigate with precision. Nonetheless, Apple is no stranger to overcoming challenges. As they expand their footprint in India, they will undoubtedly push the boundaries of what is possible in manufacturing and logistics. The outcome of this shift will shape not only the future of Apple's global operations but also the landscape of the technology industry as a whole. This is a story still in the making, and while the challenges are significant, Apple's ability to adapt and overcome them will define the next chapter in the company's legendary history. Part 5: Global Impact and Long-Term Consequences. Apple's strategic decision to relocate its iPhone production for the U.S. market to India by the end of 2026 is a significant milestone in the global manufacturing landscape. This move not only underscores India's growing prominence as a manufacturing hub but also signals a potential shift in the balance of global supply chains. India's emergence as a global manufacturing hub. India's ascent as a manufacturing powerhouse is driven by several factors. The country offers a competitive labor cost advantage, a young and expanding workforce, and a government keen on fostering industrial growth through initiatives like Make in India. These elements make India an attractive destination for companies seeking to diversify their manufacturing bases. The recent surge in foreign technical collaborations, particularly in sectors like mobile phones, electronics, and food processing, highlights India's growing capabilities. The U.S., Germany, and Japan have been instrumental in these partnerships, facilitating technology transfer and skill development. Notably, during the COVID-19 pandemic, India demonstrated its manufacturing prowess by rapidly producing pharmaceuticals and vaccines, changing perceptions about its manufacturing capabilities. Potential shift in global manufacturing dynamics. Apple's move could set a precedent for other technology giants to reconsider their manufacturing strategies. Companies like Zetwork, which connects global customers with Indian suppliers, have rapidly expanded, exemplifying the potential growth. High U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods, compared to relatively lower duties on Indian products, make India a competitive alternative. However, challenges persist. Bureaucratic red tape, inconsistent regulations, and labor issues continue to hinder the ease of doing business in India. Despite these obstacles, India's commitment to reform and infrastructure development indicates a concerted effort to position itself as a global manufacturing hub. Implications for China's manufacturing dominance. China's status as the world's factory has been built over decades, leveraging low labor costs, a robust supply chain ecosystem, and favorable government policies. However, recent developments suggest a potential erosion of this dominance. The U.S.-China trade tensions, characterized by escalating tariffs and trade restrictions, have disrupted established supply chains. For instance, U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods have led companies to explore alternative manufacturing locations. Additionally, China's aging population and shifting economic priorities towards services and consumption are contributing to a gradual decline in its manufacturing sector. These factors collectively challenge China's position as the global manufacturing leader. While it remains a significant player, the dynamics are shifting, and other nations like India are poised to capitalize on these changes. Part 6: What lies ahead for Apple? Apple is at a pivotal moment with its strategy to expand production in India, but the big question remains: can the company maintain product quality while scaling production quickly? This is no small challenge, especially since Apple has always been known for its commitment to top-notch quality and design. Can Apple maintain product quality during rapid expansion? One of the key elements that have contributed to Apple's success is its product quality. Moving production to India, with its large labor force and lower costs, promises to help Apple increase its output, but it also raises questions about quality control. How can Apple uphold its stringent standards while expanding production? This will require significant investment in training the workforce in India, as well as ensuring that manufacturing processes meet the highest standards. Moreover, key manufacturing partners like Foxconn and Pegatron, who have long collaborated with Apple, will face even stricter requirements to maintain quality. If Apple can manage this well, its products will continue to maintain their reputation in the market, regardless of whether they are produced in India or elsewhere. Impact on iPhone prices in the U.S. and globally. The shift of iPhone production to India will not only affect quality but may also have a direct impact on the price of these products. One of the reasons Apple has shifted its focus to India is to take advantage of lower labor costs compared to China. This could help reduce production costs, but it's not certain that Apple will immediately pass on these savings to consumers. Apple has long maintained a high price strategy, so iPhone prices may not change much in major markets like the U.S., despite lower production costs. However, if the savings are significant, Apple may use this advantage to bolster its profits and enhance its competitiveness, especially in emerging markets where price is a key factor in purchasing decisions. This could also help Apple maintain its leading position in the global smartphone industry. This move could spark a new trend for other tech companies. Apple is not only the first to shift its production from China to India, but this move could set a trend for other tech companies. Giants like Samsung, Google, and Microsoft may also consider diversifying their supply chains to other countries beyond China. Moving production to India could help these companies avoid political instability and trade tariffs that they face when relying solely on China. Furthermore, with government incentives and improving infrastructure in India, the country is becoming an increasingly attractive destination for global manufacturers. This trend may extend beyond electronics to other high-tech industries, such as electric vehicles, artificial intelligence, and other advanced technologies. In conclusion, Apple's decision will not only affect the company itself but also have a far-reaching impact on the entire tech industry. Other companies will have to adapt their supply chain strategies and may need to alter their manufacturing processes to remain competitive in the global market. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an exciting episode from Kunzy Podcast English. Share it with your friends and family to learn English together and explore the world around us. Thank you for tuning in, and see you in the next episode.